General Motors is cutting 1,200 jobs at its Detroit electric.
A steel monument to freedom, strength, and work ethic, built to haul lumber, towboats, and carry generations towards something better. But by 2026, that dream began to rust from the inside out. The pickup truck, once the tool of farmers and builders, had become something else entirely. A luxury badge, a financial trap, and finally, the spark that ignited one of the most unexpected economic reversals in modern American history. For decades, the big three, Ford, GM, and Ram, fed the mythology. They sold us the image of power, chrome grills, leather interiors, and engines so large they could pull a house down. They promised durability, pride, identity, and we bought in, literally, with 84-month loans, 0 down payments, and monthly bills bigger than rent. The average price of a new pickup soared past $70,000, even as wages barely moved. And still, the commercials kept playing, men in work boots, sunsets over dusty fields, a promise that felt honest, until it wasn't. Dealership lots stretched for acres filled with trucks no one could afford to buy. Banks stopped issuing long-term auto loans. Repossession trucks, the ones once towing broken-down sedans, now prowled the suburbs, hauling away brand-new F-150s and Silverados. In states like Oklahoma and Montana, tow operators reported record nights. 5, sometimes 6 trucks recovered before sunrise. Behind closed doors, executives called it a strategic recalibration. In reality, they were buying back their own unsold inventory just to keep stock prices alive. Emails leaked from Ford's internal servers described the move as protecting brand optics. But nothing could hide the truth. The myth of the infinite pickup demand was dead. For the first time, the working class, the people who had built America's highways, houses, and industries, were priced out of the very vehicle that had once represented them. The pickup was no longer a tool of labor, but a trophy of privilege. And when the economy tightened, that trophy became an anchor. From the quiet corners of California, Oregon, and Texas came a new generation of manufacturers, small, electric, modular. Startups like Slate Motors, Orion EV, and Fisker Utility began building trucks for a different kind of driver. Practical, efficient, repairable. Trucks that didn't roar for attention but simply worked and worked well. This is the story of how greed, pride, and nostalgia collided on the open road, and how, out of that wreckage, a new vision of the American vehicle began to rise. The Great Pickup Collapse wasn't just an economic event. It was the moment America reinvented its road and maybe rediscovered itself. It started as an idea more than a machine, a rolling declaration of who America thought it was. The pickup truck wasn't just transportation, it was mythology in motion. From the dusty plains of Kansas to the oil fields of Texas, the pickup had been the backbone of working America for nearly a century. It carried lumber, tools, livestock, dreams. In post-war America, owning a truck meant you were a builder, a provider, someone who made things happen with your hands. But by the 2020s, that idea had mutated. The pickup had become less about hauling and more about identity, and that identity was for sale. In the early 2000s, the average pickup was simple, reliable, and affordable. A base model Ford F-150 in 2003 cost around $18,000, a reasonable purchase for a construction worker or farmer. By 2023, the average transaction price had climbed above $65,000. Adjusted for inflation, that was still nearly double what the same truck had cost 2 decades earlier. Manufacturers claimed it was about safety, technology, and premium features. But under the hood, the reality was simpler. Profit margins on pickup trucks were more than 4 times higher than on compact cars. Trucks had become the cash cow that kept Detroit alive. Ford, GM, and Ram learned to sell not just vehicles, but lifestyles. The advertising shifted from function to fantasy. Commercials no longer showed muddy boots or job sites. They showed mountain views, designer sunglasses, and men in clean flannel looking thoughtful beside a gleaming truck that had never hauled a single tool. It was a story America wanted to believe, and people believed it so hard they went into debt for it. By 2024, nearly 40% of all new truck buyers were spending over 20% of their monthly income on loan payments. The average loan term stretched to 84 months, sometimes even 96, 8 years of debt for a vehicle that might last 10. What was once a blue-collar necessity had become a middle-class performance. The trucks grew larger, heavier, and more extravagant. Between 2010 and 2025, the average curb weight of a full-size pickup increased by almost 800 pounds. Chrome grills expanded to the size of dining tables. Interiors resembled luxury lounges, and infotainment screens rivaled televisions. The irony was brutal. The modern pickup was now too tall to fit in many home garages and too expensive to be used for real work. Yet for millions, buying one wasn't optional, it was aspirational. Somewhere between pride and pressure, the working class was left behind. In Iowa and Arkansas, local mechanics began jokingly referring to parade trucks, pickups owned by tradesmen that never saw a job site. In reality, those men couldn't afford the insurance hikes or the $1,200 monthly payments that came with newer models. Used truck prices spiked by 45% after 2021, forcing many rural families to hold on to aging vehicles long past safe limits. One Kansas farmer was quoted saying, "My truck's 20 years old and I still owe money on it, just not to the bank anymore, to the parts store." Meanwhile, the culture around trucks hardened into something almost tribal. Social media was filled with viral clips of oversized pickups rolling coal, deliberately spewing black smoke to mock environmentalists. Political commentators called the pickup the last bastion of American masculinity. In towns where factories had closed and wages stagnated, owning a truck was often the only visible sign of success. It was armor, both literal and psychological, and that armor came at a devastating cost. By 2025, analysts from the Bureau of Economic Research estimated that nearly 15% of all consumer auto debt in the U.S. was tied to pickup trucks. The ratio of truck prices to median income had reached its highest point in history. Yet dealerships kept ordering more inventory, convinced that demand would never fade. It was a collective delusion, a national performance of strength masking deep financial fragility. Some insiders already saw the cracks. A leaked internal memo from GM's marketing division in late 2025 described a market bubble fueled by identity-driven purchasing. In plain terms, people weren't buying trucks because they needed them. They were buying them because they didn't want to feel left behind. The pickup had once been America's most honest machine, a symbol of usefulness, durability, and work. But by the eve of 2026, it had turned into something darker, a mirror reflecting the country's insecurities. Beneath the polished chrome and the roaring engines was a quiet truth no one wanted to admit. The truck still represented freedom, but now that freedom came with a price tag no one could truly afford. By the time 2024 rolled around, the financial system behind America's pickup obsession had begun to creak under its own weight. What had once been a tool for workers had quietly become one of the most dangerous credit bubbles in the U.S. economy. Banks and automakers had worked together to make the dream of owning a $70,000 truck feel achievable to anyone with a paycheck. But it was an illusion built on paperwork and desperation. Dealers had learned to stretch the limits of affordability by offering 7 and even 8-year loans. A 96-month financing plan was no longer a rarity, it was the new normal. Buyers didn't see a truck they couldn't afford. They saw a low monthly payment, often under $900, neatly packaged and padded with incentives. But what they were really buying was a slow-motion financial trap. In 2025, the average American owed more on their pickup than the truck was worth within just 2 years of driving it off the lot. Negative equity, being underwater on a loan, became standard, according to a report from the fictional but eerily believable North American Credit Association. 48% of all new truck loans in 2025 were underwater by at least $9,000. People were paying luxury prices for depreciating work vehicles that had become status symbols. A truck wasn't just transportation, it was a rolling debt statement. Automakers knew exactly what they were doing. In leaked correspondence between executives at Ford and GM, real enough to circulate through financial forums but never officially confirmed, marketing directors referred to aspirational pricing strategies. a euphemism for pushing consumers beyond their means. A memo from GM's finance department allegedly described the extended loan terms as psychological bridges to premium ownership. Translation, stretch the pain far enough, and buyers won't feel it until it's too late. The financial institutions played along. Subprime auto loans, once considered a toxic relic of the 2008 crisis, returned with a vengeance. Companies like Horizon Auto Credit and Union Drive Financial packaged thousands of risky pickup loans into investment bundles sold to hedge funds and pension managers. They were labeled asset-backed mobility securities, a name carefully crafted to sound stable. But behind the rebranding was the same old trick. People with shaky credit histories buying expensive vehicles with borrowed money they couldn't repay. Analysts at one point estimated that $160 billion in outstanding truck loans were effectively junk-rated. The trap was personal, not just economic. For many working-class Americans, the truck wasn't a luxury they could give up. It was tied to their identity and livelihood. Construction workers, electricians, ranchers, they all needed pickups to survive, but the new models were priced as though they were made for CEOs. As wages stagnated, buyers reached deeper into credit, refinancing old loans to afford new ones. A strange pattern emerged. Americans were trading in trucks they still owed money on to buy newer ones, rolling the remaining balance into the next loan. It wasn't uncommon for a buyer to owe $90,000 on a $65,000 vehicle. The math was impossible, but the culture encouraged it. If you didn't have a new truck, you didn't look like you were winning. By 2026, cracks in the illusion were visible everywhere. Repossession rates hit record highs, with nearly 1 in 3 truck loans reported as delinquent or in default in the hardest-hit states, Oklahoma, Texas, and Michigan. Tow companies began operating 24-hour shifts, and some banks quietly halted new auto lending in rural areas altogether. A viral video showed a repo man in Dallas hauling away 6 identical Ford Super Duties from a single cul-de-sac, their owners watching in silence. It became a symbol of how far the bubble had spread. Even dealership staff began to speak out. Former finance managers described predatory practices that bordered on criminal, falsified income documentation, manipulated loan terms, and forged signatures on extended warranty agreements. One anonymous whistleblower from a major Ford dealership in Missouri told Auto News Review, "We weren't selling trucks anymore, we were selling loans. The vehicle was just the excuse." Meanwhile, as interest rates rose, the monthly payment that once looked manageable began to suffocate households. Delinquencies climbed, credit scores collapsed, and consumer spending fell across multiple sectors. Families that had once flaunted their lifted pickups now couldn't afford the gas to drive them. Some parked them behind barns or in garages to avoid repossession agents. A new phrase began circulating in rural America: chrome poor, people who looked wealthy on the outside but were drowning in debt behind the wheel. What made the situation truly tragic was how ordinary it had seemed. No one thought they were doing anything reckless. They were buying into an American ritual passed down through generations, encouraged by commercial, social pressure, and easy financing. But underneath it all, the system was feeding on them. The financial machinery of the pickup economy had transformed freedom into a payment plan, pride into liability. And when the bills came due in 2026, millions of Americans discovered that the cost of looking strong was much higher than they ever imagined. By the start of 2026, the illusion that the American pickup market could expand forever had shattered. The warning signs had been there for years, buried in spreadsheets and investor calls, but Detroit refused to listen. The big three, Ford, GM, and Ram, had built their empires not on innovation but on margin, stacking profits on top of marketing myths. Inside the corporate boardrooms, optimism became delusion. Executives convinced themselves that demand would never wane, that the pickup was a permanent fixture of American desire. They mistook cultural loyalty for infinite growth. Factories across Michigan, Kentucky, and Missouri had been running at near full capacity since 2022. By late 2025, thousands of new trucks rolled off assembly lines every day, each tagged with an inflated MSRP that fewer and fewer buyers could actually pay. To keep production flowing, automakers leaned heavily on fleet sales and internal buybacks. quietly purchasing their own unsold inventory under shell companies registered in Delaware. It was a financial trick meant to keep sales numbers artificially high, a tactic insiders called shadow rotation. For months, analysts mistook this internal recycling for genuine market stability, but behind the facade, dealership lots were overflowing. Some dealers rented entire parking structures to store unsold trucks. In suburban Ohio, a drone hobbyist captured footage of hundreds of brand new vehicles stacked on grass fields like abandoned cargo containers. The video went viral under the title, "The Truck Graveyard." As inventory ballooned, automakers clung to their narrative. They launched marketing campaigns that leaned even harder into emotion. Ford's 2025 slogan, "Power Never Waits," was an unintentional metaphor for what was about to happen. The power of overconfidence waiting for its reckoning. GM doubled down on luxury trims, releasing a $94,000 Silverado Elite Edition, complete with self-massaging seats and a 16-inch OLED dashboard. The company sold fewer than 3,000 units, but used the price point to justify keeping the entire lineup expensive. They weren't selling utility anymore, they were selling prestige wrapped in steel. And when prestige stopped moving units, the entire illusion collapsed. In early 2026, the first layoffs began. Assembly plants in Flint and Arlington announced temporary pauses in production. By March, those pauses turned permanent. Suppliers across the Midwest, companies that made everything from seat brackets to tailgate wiring harnesses, started to fold. One industry report estimated that 78,000 manufacturing jobs vanished within 3 months. What hit harder than the numbers was the psychology. The truck, long seen as a symbol of American resilience, was now tied to economic decay. The irony was brutal. People who built pickups were losing their livelihoods because no one could afford the pickups they made. Then came the domino effect. Dealerships, already buried in unsold inventory, began defaulting on floor plan loans, the credit lines they used to finance their stock. Small town lots that had survived for 3 generations closed overnight. The picturesque Americana image of shiny trucks lined up under red, white, and blue banners was replaced by rusting signs and empty asphalt. Satellite photos from the fictional but eerily plausible North American Automotive Survey showed hundreds of ghost lots across the Rust Belt. Locals called them mirror fields because the windshields of unsold trucks reflected the sky like mirrors of a broken economy. As the retail network imploded, trust between automakers and consumers dissolved. Surveys from independent watchdogs revealed that nearly 75% of Americans believed dealerships were intentionally deceptive about pricing and financing. Lawsuits emerged accusing multiple brands of strategic misinformation, a legal euphemism for lying. Buyers discovered that many limited editions weren't limited at all, that interest rates had been quietly adjusted after signing, that promised rebates were withheld. In a leaked recording from a GM regional meeting, one sales manager admitted, "We stopped selling vehicles, we started selling hope, and people ran out of that too." The collapse might have ended there, a corporate cautionary tale, if not for the sudden arrival of a new kind of competitor, small, hungry, and unburdened by legacy. In the vacuum left by Detroit's arrogance, a wave of electric startups surged into the spotlight. They were dismissed as curiosities at first. Companies like Slate Motors, Orion EV, and Fisker Utility. Their early prototypes were simple, almost plain, designed not to impress but to function. Slate's flagship model, the E-Truck 1, was a compact electric pickup with a 250-mile range, modular panels, and an open-source repair system. It could be serviced by local mechanics using publicly available schematics, a quiet rebellion against the closed ecosystems of the Big Three. The first wave of buyers weren't tech enthusiasts or environmentalists. They were tradesmen, farmers, small contractors, people who needed trucks, not symbols. In one viral video, a Slate E-truck pulled a flatbed loaded with concrete while using half the energy of a traditional V8. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. The video was viewed 20 million times in a week. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. The pickup was no longer about domination or excess. It was about utility again. Detroit laughed at first. Ford executives mocked Slate's toy trucks, while GM's CEO dismissed them as hobbyist experiments. But then the orders started rolling in. Rural cooperatives began purchasing fleets of electric trucks directly from manufacturers, bypassing dealerships entirely. Slate introduced an online pre-order system that allowed customers to buy straight from the factory at a flat price, no haggling, no markups. Within 6 months, they sold out their entire first-year production run. When asked about their marketing budget, Slate's founder, a former Tesla engineer named Jonah Ellis, replied simply, "We don't advertise. We let frustration do that for us." The cultural shift was sudden and visceral. Where once massive chrome grills had been badges of pride, they now looked like relics. The e-truck's quiet efficiency became its own kind of status symbol, a badge of humility in an era of excess. Farmers in Nebraska began sharing photos of their electric work trucks hauling livestock across muddy fields, captioned with lines like, "No gas, no payments, no problem." A new kind of masculinity was emerging, one based on practicality, not pretense. By mid-2026, the Big Three were scrambling to respond. Ford revived a shelved project called Falcon, a smaller, affordable hybrid pickup meant to compete with the electric newcomers. GM held emergency talks with suppliers to slash production costs on upcoming EV models. Ram's parent company Stellantis went further, announcing an open partnership with Slate Motors, a move described by analysts as desperation disguised as innovation. But for many, it was too late. The myth had been broken. What had started as a financial collapse had turned into a cultural revolution. The American road was no longer defined by the growl of oversized engines, but by the quiet hum of electric motors. It wasn't just technology that had changed, it was identity. The pickup, once a symbol of unchecked consumption, was being reimagined as a tool of resilience and self-reliance. In small towns, you could still find the old trucks parked under carports, their chrome dulled but their meaning preserved. They weren't objects of shame, just relics of a different America, one that mistook debt for pride. Now, as the new electric generation took to the highways, something deeper shifted in the national psyche. The great pickup collapse wasn't only about money or machines, it was about truth, how a country built on motion had to stop long enough to see where it was headed. And as 2026 drew to a close, the question was no longer who makes the best truck, but who makes a truck that makes sense. For the first time in decades, the answer didn't come from Detroit. It came from the edges, from the people who still believed a truck's worth was measured not in chrome, but in what it could carry and what it could help rebuild.